Hi, Bastian. How you doing?
Hi. Yeah, nice to see you. How are you?
Yeah, very good. I've
Good.
read all your books.
You have all my books, all my one book.
Bastian has been flying for 16 years, and as well as being an assistant instructor who teaches paragliding theory courses, she's a science writer, editor, and author of the brilliant Beginner's Guide, which is published by Cross Country Magazine. So today we're talking about pilot progression and ways that beginners can improve fast and safely.
Thanks, Greg. Yes, we are. We never stop learning, do we? So I know at
Yeah.
cross country we don't, at least. So, but let's say you've just qualified as a pilot, so you have your club license or your P2, or in any case you can fly independently. The question is, there's just so much more to learn, to progress, and but the problem is, how do you do that? How do you take that next step in your flying career? And that's what we're here to talk about.
Yeah, it's a lifelong journey, really. I thought I would be able to sort of condense everything that's needed in, a few years of doing videos, and it's a continuous path. You always think, oh, hang on, there's that thing that, when you get to a new site and you're trying to read the weather, and there's all these things that you build up over time that keep you safe. And
Yeah.
it's kind of amazing that we can actually do it with so little knowledge, because when we started, we were all the same. And, all the experienced pilots all started in the same place. And it's quite an amazing sport that it lets you get away with a lot. You start off with very little knowledge and you don't know what you don't know. And I think it's good to just be open to learning all the time and continuously, so that you just keep on filling that knowledge base and you apply it in your flying, but it's never full. Like, you never really completely know everything. It's just a continuum.
Absolutely. So actually, the more you learn, the more you know that there is much more to learn than you already know. But you've set up this amazing community, Fly with Greg. It's online. It's all those videos and resources. It's really a great place to go to progress as a pilot. So that's what I'd like to talk to you about. You basically, your job is to answer the question how to take that next step in your flying career, right? So that's why
Yeah.
we're here.
It's different depending on what country you've learned in as well. So my guys are international. I try to keep an international perspective, because each national system has its own strengths and weaknesses. And pilots come out at very different levels from the different systems. So I'm there to try and provide some consistent guidance that levels everybody up to the same level. So that's what I've been working on over the last couple of years, is making a whole set of video progression that pilots can come in at whatever level they're at and then progress from there. And then maybe they think, oh, I'll go and have a look at the ground handling thing. Maybe there's something I can learn there. And then they find a whole lot of videos and, they start exploring that level. So that's why I've done it the way I have. I haven't gone the BHPA syllabus or, the South African syllabus or anything like that. I've developed my own that is kind of unifying. So it supports any progression path that you've got, but you can come up and fill in the blanks and get up to that same level that I see as a kind of top level, ready for cross-country pilot. That's what I'm trying to do. And again, it's a lifelong journey, really. There's always new things to add in, and ways to explain things in different ways and build pilots up. So that's what I'm doing, but I love it. It's great. I get to share the sport that I love, and I enjoy making videos. So it's good fun.
It looks really great. It's a great place to go and explore. But my question would be, what do you think? As a pilot, you just got your license first day. What do you think that pilot should go and do first thing? What's the logical next step when they just finished their basic training?
I would say find a local playground. Identify somewhere that you can go that is a really good place, ground handling field, sloping field, playing slope, small hill, something that you can get to easily and regularly, that you can at least work on the ground handling, the kiting, the pulling the glider up in stronger conditions, messing around with killing the glider techniques, all that sort of stuff. That helps you build up stuff that maybe you didn't have time in the school. Maybe their school environment wasn't ideal for it. And that will help you keep that currency there. Not everybody's beside a really nice flying site, but there's probably some sort of field that you can go and get access to. You might have to talk to a farmer or something like that. But that can be very helpful just in the beginning phases. And then I'd say go to the coast if you can. It's worth driving a bit in your first year to get to the laminar airflow where you can really learn techniques without the interference of turbulence messing up what you're learning, and then you're not sure, was it you or was it the air? Coastal flying, I was very lucky. I lived at the coast. I had access to a lot of coastal sites, and I progressed really quickly because I would just go out and learn how to walk the glider up a slope and across to the launch site and take off and land and walk back up again. And you do those sort of things. And that really, it cements that foundation layer of proximity flying, of getting used to which way the wind's coming, being able to read it from the air, being able to judge your airspeed and the ground speed and how it interacts. And that kind of proximity flying, a lot of pilots miss that out. They're trained maybe in the Alps. They've got a launch site at 1,000 meters. They fly out and they land in a big field. And they haven't built up that mental awareness and judgment of the terrain and the wind speed and the way it affects the turbulence around the slope and all of that sort of stuff. So that, I think, is really gold. If you can try and do that, and if you can't, then book on a course, like an overseas beginner's course, where somebody's got a flying base and they're somewhere coastal, and you can go and get lots and lots of simple flights. And that really helps that first year, rather than worrying about cross-country and trying to thermal and big mountains and stuff. And then I'd suggest just use your wing, really use it. That first wing that you get, just thrash it out. You must put hundreds of hours in that thing. And I think a lot of pilots are in that same place in their first wing, but they only end up getting 50 hours in it, and then they're wanting to upgrade to a high B because they've been flying for 2 years. They've only got 50 hours on the wing. And it's that wing is the one that you can just use, and it's a easy to sell on kind of wing. So just use it and get hundreds of hours if you can before you thinking about upgrading.
Do you think pilots should do this on their own, or should they consider a coach or a guidance or a school to learn these ground handling techniques better or faster or safer? What do you think?
Well, if it's available, pilots are all over the world, and it depends where you are and where you're trained. If it's available, if your school or any school in your area is offering ground handling courses or pilot progression days, things like that, absolutely sign in, because they just boost your learning and make it much quicker and correct any mistakes that you've got if you've got an instructor right there. They're still worth a lot after your basic license training. And I think a lot of pilots miss out because they think, I've done my training, now I'm on my own. And you don't have to be. There are schools that offer that sort of progression training. But to be honest, they're very few and far between, because it's not a very easy thing to offer commercially. When you've got pilots of different levels coming in on sort of ad hoc days now and again, and it's much easier if you've got 10 students for 2 weeks in an intensive course. So you might have to then look at guided holidays, that sort of thing overseas. You can get some places, like in the UK, you've got club systems where you've got club coaches. They can be helpful on the hill. But there it's usually, the problem is it's non-professional. I'm not saying they're unprofessional, but they're not charging, they're not paid for. So they're there on a Saturday maybe, but then they're not there on the Sunday when it's flyable. it's a bit haphazard, and it would be better to try and find a professional coach who can take you to the hill and actually do some training. But otherwise, I'm saying go and find the coast, or go and find that local playground, that simple hill, where you can train these things yourself, but keep it in a suitable environment. Put it that way.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think that's a lack in our training system worldwide, basically, to not have a lot of those ground handling courses or glider handling training
Yeah,
possibilities in our system?
yeah. It's a difficult problem to solve, because internationally, most of the national association licensing systems have pretty low bar. They're taking pilots to a sort of basic level of, like, you've got just enough to be safe. And it's that way because it's a big commercial pressure on the schools to actually complete training. If you make the bar too high and you say you need 100 flights and you have to have flown in thermals and do all of these extra things, the drop-off is very high. It's very difficult to get pilots to that higher level consistently enough that the school's actually viable. So there's a pressure there that makes the commercial schools work when there's a low bar and you can just get the basics and off you go, and now you must carry on from there. And to make the full training part of the national syllabus, it has a problem of discouraging people, making it harder to run a school, so you get less of the spread of the sport. But I do feel like the bar could be raised internationally. And if the standard was set at a higher level, the schools would be forced to train to that higher level. Therefore, all the prices would go up. Yes, it would limit the flow coming into the sport, but it would also reduce the accidents because the guys are trained to a higher level. So I think it would actually work in our favor to make the bar higher. But I'm not the one that sets the national curriculum. So I just try and support pilots to go beyond it, because I really feel you need a lot more than your basic license to be safe in the sport.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So you're saying ground handling is the one skill that pilots, after their basic training, should progress in, should go on. Are there skills that you can do ground handling on your own, right? That's what you're saying. But are there any skills, important skills, when progressing, that you cannot learn from a video or on your own, just trying trial and error?
Well, yeah, there are two that I feel are pretty key. The one is stall point training, low-level stall point training, and that is, you can do it on your own if you've got a very shallow slope that you can play on. It depends on the site that you've got. But the ability to recognize when your glider is going through that stall point and how to keep it flying on the right side of the stall point, I think that's key. It's really useful in a lot of things, in all of your thermic flying, slope landing, top landing, launch control, and the ability to feel it rather than looking at the wing and watching and seeing when it goes into backfly. It's pretty obvious. But the feeling that it's approaching the spin point and the stall point, that feeling of it going soft and breaking away, you can train that with your feet 1 foot off the ground. That's probably best to do with an instructor, but it depends on where you are. If you've got a nice big sand dune that's available to you, that's the sort of thing you could mess around with. But that's one key I think is kind of missing, apart from ground handling. That's a key skill that's very, very helpful.
Okay, and what happens if pilots just go out and fly on their own and try to get all those skills on their own without any help? Is that dangerous in your view?
Well, if they're following my guidance of being very low when you're doing that test, that exercise, then no, there's no danger. But it's when they think they're low, but they're 2-3 meters up and they're messing around with stall point, that it could be very dangerous because you're very low and you're going to get thrown onto your back. So there is a risk of doing that sort of training, because you might not be that self-aware that you're actually think you're 1 foot off the ground, but you're actually 2-3 meters. So that's the only caveat there. I'd say it's better to do that in a trained environment, on a skills progression type of course. But it's something that you could do. The other important skill that you really need help with is the feeling of, is it flyable? And that's a super hard one to train online. Like the feeling of getting to a mountain site on your own, standing there and being able to feel that the conditions are nice. Because the disadvantage of trial and error there is, well, when you get it right, it's great, but then you get it wrong. It was not flyable and you flew. And you get blown over the low ridge into strong wind. That's the typical one. You stood on the launch site and thought it was fine, pulled up the glider and got blown over a little ridge. And that's the kind of training that you really need to try and seek out a mentor, a coach, a club member, an experienced pilot who flies in your area that you can team up with, that will help you with your flying in the beginning. And I would suggest a very simple way of doing that is find your local XC hotshot pilot and offer to do some retrieve driving in exchange for being sent off early in the morning, or like going along with that pilot on their flying adventures, but you get to fly first in the morning and do the little flights and get used to new sites, and then you drive to pick them up. That's just a suggestion of a way how you can make that work. But that's something that needs a lot of iterations of going to different sites in different conditions with an experienced pilot, that you get there and then the experienced pilot says to you, do you think it's flyable? And you go, are you going to give me any hints? And he's going to go, no. And you stand there, and as you're getting your glider out, he says, it's coming over the back. You want to go and stand on the rock at the top and hold the streamer up. And you go up there and you go do that. That's something I can't teach online. And it needs you to seek out someone experienced who will team up, and or just fly in an active club, or go and do entry-level competitions, the feeder competitions, the ones that are helping pilots progress, any kind of club flyaway, those sort of events where you can get exposure to different sites, and be able to develop that skill of, is it flyable?
Yeah, that's some great advice, especially the one of finding an advanced pilot and go retrieve driving for it. That's a win-win. That sounds really great.
I'm just making a whole lot of retrieve drivers for myself.
Brilliant. That's really brilliant. So yeah, it's great to find an advanced pilot, of course. The thing is, if you're progressing and you're seeking information, the hardest thing is to judge the quality of the information you're finding. Of course, your channel is great. Cross Country is trying to give the best information possible. And there are another few that we know that are good and trustable sources. But what if you don't know the person that's giving you information? How do you judge it's okay to listen to them? Do you have a set of rules to make that out for a new pilot?
That's really hard. I mean, online is the Wild West, it's anybody that's got a camera and wants to make videos about paragliding and jump on and start teaching people their methods. It's kind of open. There's no filter. There's no publisher controls. So, partly the publisher, the brand has some authority there, like, Cross Country Magazine, all of the books that are on the shelf up here and, your book, things like this are gold. Like they've got a editorial process and are vetted and checked. So that's a good way to start. But otherwise, I would say you are the pilot. It's all of it is logical. Everything about flying is logical. There isn't any kind of magical mystery about how the wing works. It's an entirely technical thing. So if you just apply your logic and you watch things that you see, don't be misled by online charisma or something that looks, amazing, flashy. Just apply your logic and look at it and think it through and apply the logic to the information that you're presented with. And that way you can build your knowledge. Like, look at it like, will this actually work? Does this make sense to me? Do I understand why they're saying what they're saying? And you will be exposed to a lot of information about paragliding, and not all of it is true. So I think that part of developing your ability to judge the information that's coming at you is part of you growing as a pilot. It's part of what you need to do. So I don't try and protect people from this, and I never go online and say, oh, this is rubbish and this person's, telling with totally nonsense. It's like, you as the pilot need to develop that. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I present all of my stuff in a very consistent manner. So that helps when you've got one source that you're drawing from that is consistent and isn't conflicting. And I think that's where a lot of confusion comes in online, is like, one guy will say, no, you do it this way. The other guy says, no, you do it that way. They've each got their reasons, and they probably are correct to a certain point, but they haven't really looked at the bigger picture. They're in an isolated case or a launch site. Their technique always works where they are, and they've never been to the desert in South Africa or the dunes or the high alpine slopes, and they haven't applied their technique there. And as a beginner, you're not aware of their limitations. So I would say just treat everything with a critical mindset, including my stuff, that you look at it and you think it through and you try and understand, does it work for me? And if you've got questions, ask questions. That's what I do in my academy as well. It's like, I'll present something, then people will go, hey, but that doesn't make sense. And that's where you learn, is you start asking questions in a space where you've got experienced pilots that can bounce the answers around and help you find what the knowledge that you're looking for.
Brilliant. So keep thinking for yourself logically and keep asking questions. That's the main thing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Is there anything else you want to say to our progressing pilots, the ones that have just finished training, watching this, reading this? What do you want to say to them?
Go and fly. The bottom line is we do there's a lot of information now, much more than was available when I started. I would love to have had all of the training materials available, but don't get stuck in it, because it is a sport that you can learn a little bit, go and fly, enjoy it, come back, learn some more. And I think balance the study with airtime. I like to suggest to my guys, they watch an hour of video, they go do an hour of flying. It's like, try and balance your consumption of the study material with putting it into practice, because that is the place where you really learn, and all the online and books and everything else is just supporting your learning path, but the real learning happens in the sky. So get out and fly.
Go fly. Great advice. Great. I wish we could. Thanks very much, Greg, for all this useful information.
You're welcome. I really enjoy helping pilots, because it's such a cool sport. It's such a good thing to do. And the more that pilots know and can avoid dangerous situations and scary dips in their flying progress, the better, because we've got more good pilots, and the more we share and learn, I think the more we can progress as a community. So I enjoy it. I'm happy to be here, and thanks for doing what you're doing. So brilliant.
Thanks very much. Yeah,
your book is so to the point, and really it complements what I do so well, because in a book you can study a lot more. It's much more dense. You can study the knowledge quickly. And what I do is demonstration, so you actually experience the setting up for a top landing or whatever visually. So the two go together very well. And I think pilots should do as much as they can and have study materials, books, talk to pilots, go to seminars, and definitely join my academy and progress.
Absolutely. Thanks very much. And yeah, they're complimentary, aren't they? Your videos are really great to watch. It's actually flying. It's a lot less boring than a book.
Excellent. Well, thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. It all started with me asking you. So thanks very much.
Good luck putting together the article. I'm sure there's other things that you can bring in there to make it complete. And then my little segment, I can just point across to the article and people can find out more.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be a gathering of sources and bits like this interview and text in general, and it'll just be a whole big collection of sort of resources. So yeah, brilliant. Thanks very much.
Great. Thanks. See you.
See you. Ciao.
Bye.